Frank.
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, I think what we'll do this evening is we do have, does everybody have the questions in front of them? So we can just go around and ask one, each of us can ask a question. And Councilmember Beckman is, out, I believe, out of town, and Councilman Cernanik, we are not quite sure yet, in town or on his way. But regardless, we have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Frank, the licensing authority meets the second Wednesday of every month. Do you have any concerns about that particular, are you able to meet that day?
No concerns whatsoever. Yes, I would be available to attend all licensing authority second Wednesday meetings of the month, yes.
Okay, and then also you know that the licensing authority is televised on Channel 8 and streamed live on the website. Would you be uneasy, worried, intimidated by the telecasting of the licensing authority meetings?
No, I would not be uneasy, worried, or intimidated by telecasting the licensing authority meetings, as evidenced by no objection to these meetings right now being televised and open to the public. My mantra is transparency, accountability, and consequences.
Sounds a little bit like a session at Congress where I refuse to answer this question.
You can take the fifth if you want.
Really?
I know. I just want to be certain that I get all the information into you.
That's good.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start with Bruce.
Okay.
Bruce.
And there's no confusion over which Bruce tonight, which is
Right.
Not bad Bruce, all night.
it's getting it. No. Or good Bruce. You've applied for the licensing authority before, haven't you? Or am I?
Numerous times. For the past decade, I've been applying.
Yeah, I recall. I thought I recalled. So, your continuing interest in serving on this particular board or authority. Talk about your interest and your, what you would like to accomplish by participating.
Number one, being appointed by you, I'm your agent on the board in a sense, and I'd say that I'm not going in with an agenda on my part to bring to change the direction of the board. I'm there to make decisions and be part of a quasi-judicial hearing and to adjudicate in accordance with the guidance you give me. I think part of my history is my grandfather ran a brewery in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I've always been intrigued by the licensing and legalization, and also by, at times, prohibition being unsuccessful. I think, in a sense, when it comes to the marijuana here in Littleton, I think you've made a great decision of just limiting it to, I believe we're at 4 facilities right now, and just saying this seems to be a reasonable number. My personal bias might have permitted more than that, but I would be representing you in your decision and not going contrary to that.
Well, in the code.
Right, in the code,
yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I don't know, does that answer?
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate it. The brewery in Salt Lake City is interesting. You're familiar with a particular brand called Polygamy Porter? And the tagline is, you can't have just one.
Oh, jeez. But
or more than one is good, or some such thing.
No, this
do you
was
have a mute button over there?
this is Fisher beer brewed to the altitude.
Okay.
Fisher beer.
Fisher beer.
Is it still operational?
Oh no,
okay.
it went bankrupt and got bought out by Lucky Lager 50 years ago.
Okay. Good. Thank
So
you.
there's history on that.
Okay, Peggy?
What skills or experience would you bring to the licensing authority?
I think one is a willingness to compartmentalize into the extent of recognizing that it is a quasi-judicial board, and that I'll be restricting my decision-making to the evidence presented at the board, and being certain that that does not additional statements or facts are mentioned to the board prior to any decision, if necessary, to recuse myself. With my experience with the Victims Assistance Compensation Board, I've on occasion known the people being considered for a reimbursement and recused myself. So there's a willingness, and I feel a willingness to make the decisions and be involved and have a familiarity with the city. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Jim?
Do you have any feelings about limiting the number of liquor licenses that the city has available?
With regards to liquor license, I don't think so. I'm at this time trust that the marketplace would limit the number that would be able to survive, and as long as the locations meet the restrictions here in Littleton, I don't believe I'd find myself objecting. I'd let the marketplace brutally decide. I think for the marijuana, 4 seemed like has turned out to be a great number. I haven't seen them go belly up the way other communities have had gone from spikes to booms and busts. So I think it's good. I see no, I would not be restricting the numbers.
But I understood you say a while ago that under marijuana centers that if you'd had the opportunity, you would have not limited it to 4 in the original case.
I might not have, no. It was a city council decision, and I think you had a tough call to make, and I would stand behind your decision of 4. I might have, if I had been on city council, I might have said, been willing to go with a boom and bust phenomenon, but I think your decision has dampened it out to the final number.
Okay, thank you.
Jerry?
Hey, Frank. You're currently on the Victim Assistance Compensation Board,
Yes.
and you're also on the Arapahoe County Liquor Authority.
Yes.
With Arapahoe County, give me an example of one of the cases that came before you guys that was somewhat controversial.
One of the cases that came before us was serving liquor to an obviously intoxicated individual. We felt that it was, well, my decision on it was that the individual had, this was unincorporated Arapahoe County at where Evans becomes Iliff. The individual had come across the street, then stumbled through the parking lot into the liquor store, been served, and was one of the perpetual perpetual drunks of the neighborhood and then went back out. As I understand it, the community and neighborhood had encouraged the Arapahoe County sheriffs to watch for this behavior and to, in a sense, use it to intimidate the liquor store to discourage drunks in the neighborhood. And I voted against any suspension of the license because I felt that this was the owner of the liquor store had reasonably felt that the person was sober enough to be served, and that this was more of a harassment issue than a dangerous selling of liquor to a person who the person had already been drunk.
Great. Thank you. That's it for me.
Curtis?
I'm trying to recall back what we've got in the sort of the guidelines book for the licensing authority. It's been a while since I've read it, but I thought there was a framework with respect to the penalty phase, monetary versus
Times
yeah,
in abeyance.
well, or you have to close for so many days.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure you've got familiarity with the range of possible alternatives up to and including having reviewed the guidelines. Talk a little bit about your thoughts in terms of where your personal feelings land in terms of, when is it appropriate to do monetary versus, do a couple day shutdown, or how egregious does something have to be before you start, escalating penalties? How many times does somebody have to, be cited, this kind of thing?
With the Arapahoe County Liquor Board, our statement is if we see you a second time, it's been far too often. And so there's an initially it might, I'm going to just say 14 days of closure with 13 in abeyance, and the one day that is closed not being on a weekend, of being the weakest to make the point and make the message. I think it's important to make the message. My system, not my system, but Arapahoe County, I feel our attitude there has been, if we see you a second time, it's going to get very serious. And so I don't know, am I answering your question?
No, I think so. I think it's more just thought process as much as anything else. But, and then I guess maybe the follow on there would be, what's your view of, in some respects, it's sort of as 6 to 1, half dozen the other, but in doing the 14 with 13 in abeyance, and then you shut them down for a day versus they can pay the penalty and stay open and not lose continuity of business operations, that kind of thing. I mean, is there a preference in your mind?
Especially in this tough economy, the last thing I'd want to do is discover that I was destroyed a business. And so I think initially when I started out on the Arapahoe County Liquor Board, there were always days in there. Now I think I would find myself more open to letting an establishment buy its way out of one day. But still, if we see you again, we've seen you too often, and it's getting far more serious.
Okay, that's fair. Thanks.
Peggy, do you have anything else?
No, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Frank, do you have any questions for us?
No, just pleasure, great. And just my statement as before that you've stumbled onto peace. Congratulations, bask in it, because I can't believe you're going to hold on to it. Mortal hubris is going to catch up with. It's so tempting.
There wasn't any other evidence you wanted to enter in per your...
No.
That will help you.
Oh, correction. And I don't, only because I've got all of you trapped here. We've looked at Glendale, and Glendale has Shotgun Willies. We look at Littleton, and Littleton at one time had Crystals. And Littleton at one time chose to use the force of government, not as an incentive, but to disincentivize Crystals in Littleton. And I'm in a sense, you could argue, in my mind, that what happened with Crystals was not economic development for Littleton. So, just
Peggy has a question.
Yeah.
sure.
Have you watched or attended any of the licensing authority meetings?
No, I haven't.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jerry. Great, super. Pleasure.
Want me to bring in? You got it?
Oh, Wendy will send him in.
Jim.
Tony? No.
I'm good, Jerry. That's right.
Man, thank you.
Are you walking?
Oh, yeah, I'm on 2 feet right now, so.
Good to see you.
Right, that's right. You guys got all your new electronic toys?
Yes, we do.
Welcome.
But Jim's not using his. Okay. My name is Tony Gallagher, and I'm applying for the position on the licensing authority that's vacant.
Okay. Tony, we, as you well know, the licensing authority meets the second Wednesday of each month.
Yes.
Do you have any scheduling conflicts with that?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And as you also are aware, the licensing authority is televised,
Yes.
and we do stream live over the city's website. Do you have any concerns with being
No,
televised?
ma'am.
Okay. So we'll start with Jerry.
You were term limited
Yes.
on the same board,
Yes.
and that was how long ago?
That was about 2 years ago.
So was that 9 years then you served?
Actually, it was 11 years that I was on the board, and 8 of those years I was the chairman.
Give us an example without going into any specific details on any case, but just kind of how a difficult situation may have been handled within the board.
Well, we did have a situation with an establishment called Pitchers at one point there on Bowles, just west of Santa Fe on the north side by Echo Star by Dish Network now. And it was pretty much a party place, hip-hop music, 21 through 30-year-old crowd. It was quite a problem for the Littleton Police Department. They had very many, every week we get a report that was probably, I don't know, an inch thick of incidents that happened at that point. And we did manage to get those owners out of there. It was pretty tricky because the Pitchers area, there was like 7 people that were part of a cartel, that all 7 of them were partners in the deal. And when one would get in trouble to a point where they would get their license suspended or revoked, they would sell to one of the other partners. And that went on multiple times until finally they sold. We got rid of that group and sold to another group, but it was still the same type of operation. Eventually that group ended up folding their tent and leaving town. We were going to revoke their license, but they went out of business before we had the opportunity to. And that incident was because of an underage drinking incident where the young lady had crashed her car into the golf course across the street, crashed and burned and rolled her car. Her and her passenger survived and were okay, but we were told that they were drinking at Pitchers, and the owner said, no, they weren't. We check IDs, and these underage people have never been in there. And we were ready to close the hearing when the girl's mother came in and said, can I speak? She showed me a picture of this girl sitting on the owner's lap while he's pouring a bottle of tequila into her mouth. And that pretty much did it. After that, about a week later, they went out of business and left town. We suspended their license for 60 days. We did not revoke the license because the owner of the building wanted to open a reception hall type thing and wanted to keep the liquor license. And they told us that it would be 60 days that they would need to renovate the place in order to be up and operating, and we worked with them pretty closely. The latest one that I had, probably the last one that we did, there was a liquor store owner that was in this parking lot of King Soopers at Mineral and Broadway. And the gentleman had had several instances of underage, selling to underage, and selling to over-serving some people too. In fact, he over-served a person while the police were there conducting a sting with an underage girl. And the final straw, the straw that broke that camel's back was he had a run-in with one of his customers and was under the influence himself. The owner was under the influence himself. When the police showed up, the man was drunk. There were several empty little one-shot vodka bottles in the trash can and 2 or 3 broken bottles of wine in the back room. We suspended their license until they could sell it to another gentleman, and another gentleman came up with the money and made a deal and bought the place lock, stock, and barrel, and we worked with that to complete that. But what we did do is get this irresponsible owner out of the business.
Thank you.
Jim?
Why do you want back on the authority again, Tony?
I enjoyed my time on the authority. I thought it was a very necessary job, and I felt I did a good job, and I actually enjoyed doing it. It gave me a feeling of importance. I had a little bit of pulse on what was happening, my finger on the pulse of what's happening in the city. I just enjoyed it.
Peggy?
I don't have any.
Bruce?
Can't figure out how to use my notes. So we'll just move on then. Talk a little bit, Tony. We've I think modified a little bit. We've got sort of a guidelines document that council put together and gave to the authority to sort of try to help standardize some of the processes. I think there had been some over a period of time, maybe some concerns with some things that had gone maybe outside of what had been traditional protocol, right, wrong, or indifferent. One of the issues I think has to do with penalty phase kinds of things where we're now willing to accept fine in lieu of suspension of license. Talk a little bit about your feelings with respect to that tool.
Well, and not having seen the guidelines that you gave out, I really don't know much about it, but I did hear that you were going to start administering fines. I think that's, I think that's fine. When I was on, of course, they weren't allowed to administer fines.
Right.
However, if a licensee would show up with an attorney, that's kind of a fine itself. I mean, because the attorney's fees are running for Dill Stonebreaker, I believe they're $500 or $600 an hour. And if they bring in one attorney and spend 2 or 3 hours in the office, that's a pretty serious attorney's bill for them, for, a small outfit. So I always thought there should be some fines, something that they, if you were, and I know a lot of communities that they'll suspend a license for a certain amount of time and hold something in abeyance and let them pay a fine in lieu of suspension. And I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. All right, thanks.
But as far as the suspensions go, to give a first-time violation a small suspension, say 7 days with 4 days held in abeyance, just so you have something over your head. My experience has been that if you do suspend someone for a period of time and hold someone in abeyance for a year, you rarely see them back again in the near future.
Is that
It
normal?
generally, most of the time, it gets everybody's attention.
But I mean, that abeyance period being that long, is that sort of typically what you guys?
Yes, it would be in abeyance for a year.
I see.
In all cases that I've been involved in.
Okay, good.
Barry, anything else?
No.
Anybody else?
What's your feeling about limiting the number of licenses the city has, Tony?
Well, Jim, as you recall, when you were mayor, I asked you that question, what guidelines we had. And since that time, I've in discussion with our former assistant city attorney, et cetera, I found out that the state does have a formula to decide it. It's rather complicated. And looking back, all the licenses that were approved when I was on the authority, we didn't have one that came in with a petition that was less than 88% in favor. So as far as I can see, that if the petitioning area, if those neighbors in that petitioning area are in favor of it, I don't see there's any way that the authority could limit it.
Barry?
You had mentioned or had written on your application that you did work with the city council and the city attorney regarding the marijuana ordinance.
Yes, I helped them to decide who was going to monitor that, and I said that the liquor authority, at the time the liquor authority, now it's the licensing authority, would have the means to do that in a quasi-judicial nature, and that we have had people, the licensees, when they violate, it's like going to court. And I would assume it would be the same thing for the marijuana dispensaries. At that point, if they violate the rules, then the suspensions could be given out by the authority.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Tony, any questions that you have for us?
When can I expect to get the job?
Going for the assumptive clause. Attaboy.
Well, we have one more interview this evening, and then we'll spend some time making a decision this evening, and then we'll let Wendy know. She'll let the candidates know, and then I think we could probably have it on the agenda for next week to make it official.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks again for the interview.
You bet.
Thank you, Tony.
Take care. Jerry, good luck. Congratulations on your election.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bruce?
Glad you're walking better.
Thank you.
Peggy, thank you. Debbie, thank you. Yeah,
Good to see you again.
good seeing you too. You guys have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, take
You
care.
too.
Thank you, sir.
Could it get any colder in here?
Is it a little chilly for you?
Honey?
Ah,
I think it's when the door gets open, Kathy.
it gets a breeze going.
Where do I go?
Sit right here. Hey, can we get you just a cup of water in it?
Yes, please.
We'll do that.
Sure.
I'm well.
Nice to meet you.
Are you, Kathy?
I'm well. How have you been?
Huh? Hanging in there.
Good. How are you, Peggy? Thank you. Were you having good or bad? Sorry. Oh, they locked us out of those. Is there anything under?
We do know which Bruce we have tonight, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I want to state for the record that it has, my memory has resurfaced, and Councilmember Cernanik was going to be absent this evening. So.
That one's not mine, that other one is. Is this?
There you go.
She came prepared.
I don't have a drinking problem.
I don't think you were serving. Don't be a waitress.
It's a different, no.
I don't think you'll be a waitress. You were for Halloween that one year, but
Well,
Really?
yeah, we won't go there though.
Oh, come on. Come on now, the cat's out of the bag. Let's-
Okay, well, thank you. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you.
And you are here to interview for Licensing Authority. And the authority meets on the second Wednesday of each month. Do you have any scheduling conflicts with that?
I don't know. It's the future. Well, I'm in education, and you know how that is. So, yeah, to be honest with you, I don't know. There's parent-teacher conferences. There's back-to-school night. I'm starting a new school this year with, and it's totally different than anything I've ever done. So I do not know what their schedule will be, and what nights I will work. But I do have to work some nights.
Okay.
So
Okay. And then the Licensing Authority is televised on Channel 8, and we do stream it live over the city's website. Do you have any discomfort with being televised?
no.
Okay, we are being televised this evening also. All right, so we'll go ahead and start with Bruce.
Okay. Discuss if you would your interest in serving on the licensing authority in particular. Obviously, looking at your statement and your commendable interest in doing more with the community, but what specifically in your thought process makes it a good fit with the licensing authority in particular?
Well, as you said, I'm always looking for something to do. I've been heavily involved in a lot of Littleton things over the years. Western Welcome Week, Main Street Players, performing at Town Hall, that kind of thing. Ran for council, actually. I was looking at somewhere to serve, something to do.
Okay.
Because that's really just a huge part of who I am. I would serve on anything that would be needed. I love Littleton, as we all do. It's a great place to be. It's a great place to live. And I am happy and joy-filled to give back to this community on any level that I can. And Kevin Kostoff said, Kathy, do that one. And I said, okay. So
Okay. All right.
Kevin told me to.
All right. Fair enough. Thank you.
Peggy?
So do you have particular skills that you see meshing with this?
That is, I wonder what, put some, no, I was going to say, put a shot up here and I'll show you. No, I'm joking. But I was wondering what you guys meant by skills. To me, that was an interesting question, and it could mean many things. I'm obviously personable. I get along well with people. I'm a school counselor by trade, so I am very, very good at mediation, being in the middle, being put in the middle of any discord, and I'm very good at problem solving, working with people, talking with people. I won the Colorado State Mediator Award of the Year from the Boulder Center for Resolution, so I'm quite good at what I do. I love people, and enjoy working with all different kinds of personalities. So.
Jim?
What's your feeling about limiting the number of liquor licenses in the city?
You know, I would think that that would depend on a lot of circumstances. You know, you look at demographics, you look at needs, you're going to look at laws. So I would imagine you would have to really extensively study and know what you're up against and what's needed, and why people are applying or wanting. And besides, I think there's only 2 that are allowed, right? For, as far as marijuana goes, 2 licenses, right? And with it,
4. We have 4
4,
for
okay.
marijuana.
I thought there were 2, okay. So it's, you know, it's not a huge amount here in this city. I like the fact that things are regulated and controlled on that level. You know, but you're going to look at things case by case, I would imagine, and fairly and objectively.
Okay.
Jerry?
Yes. You serve currently, right now you're serving on the Western Welcome Week?
Not anymore, no.
Okay.
I do volunteer still for them.
As far as Western Welcome Week goes, or any of the other committees that you've been on, describe for me a controversial situation that you were involved with as a board member that came before that board or that you may have been on.
Oh, it's been a while. Let's see. Well, actually, I think probably the biggest controversy it's scary, isn't it?
I'm just glad it was his phone.
Sorry. Healing of
That's quite all right. The biggest controversy I remember was when Cindy Hathaway we were talking about, there was no executive director. The only person that was paid at that time was Betty Mulvey. And she was, you know, part-time and working a few hours here and there. And so I was on the board that moved to make Cindy the executive director and bring somebody in pretty much full-time to run Western Welcome Week. That was controversial. It took some maneuvering. It took some, you know, talking, and we had to really spend time getting everyone on board and looking at financials and how to make it work.
And then as far as attendance for that particular board, how was your attendance?
Outstanding. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you could ask them. I don't think I ever missed a meeting. I might have missed one in all the years, and I was on 7 years, so I don't think I missed
And
any meetings.
your work schedule has changed.
Well, I was a teacher then, I think, and I'm a school counselor now. You know, education, you have to do some things at night. It's not a lot that we're required by contract. I think 3 a year is what we're required by. So 3 times a year is what we're required to do. So
And are they on Wednesday nights?
I don't know. I haven't seen the schedule for this year yet. I was just hired in this job Thursday, so I don't know what she's got in mind. But I don't think she's going to make me work till midnight. I hope not.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
One of the things that council has, I guess, put into the toolbox, if you will, for the licensing authority is the opportunity to levy fine in lieu of suspending a particular liquor license. So it used to be that, I think traditionally the licensing authority would fine someone, fined in the case of a violation that maybe 4 days suspension with 3 held in abeyance
Right.
is a reasonable, or was in a particular example, a reasonable alternative. Talk a little bit, if you would, about maybe your thought process in terms of when it's appropriate to determine that the business should be suspended, or the license should be suspended for some period of time versus having a fine levied and allow them to continue to operate.
Yeah, well, what comes to mind for me is, of course, the degree of severity
Okay.
that you're talking about. And again, I'm very fair. I'm very fair, and I'm all about justice. That's who I am. And I would have to really sit and have all the facts in front of me before I'd make any kind of decision. And hopefully, it would be done not in isolation, the decision making, and it would be done in a impartial manner. Again, you look at the severity of something like that, and you've got to look at the laws, everything that surrounds it. To me, that would be paramount and ethical, the right thing to do.
All right, great, thanks.
Can I follow up on that just a little bit, Kathy? When and under what circumstances would you suspend a license?
Wow, that's a good question. If they've, boy, violating the law, you guys. Crossing the boundary of, minors, definitely. That would have to be number one for me because I work with kids. The safety issues, responsibility. You better be responsible if you're going to hold those kinds of licenses. So those proprietors really need to be aware of and conscientious about who they're serving, what they're serving, how much they're serving, when they're serving it. Everything. It all comes into play. It must be. Safety's got to be an issue that you have to take into consideration.
What would you tend to do if a violator came before you a second time?
I would imagine, and I don't know because I haven't studied it yet, that there would be some kind of a step system. And I'm not sure how that looks, you guys, because I truly haven't looked at something like that. I don't know the laws that surround that. I can learn, because I'm quite bright, and I can learn that. But I would think it would be more severe the second time. I don't know, and it depends on, again, what was the first violation, what's the second violation? You're going to have to look at hopefully, each situation individually. Is this habitual? What are the charges exactly?
Okay, thank you.
Kathy, the standard question that we do need to ask, are you in law enforcement or do you have any interest in a bar, restaurant, liquor store, or medical marijuana center?
Yes. No. None of the above. None of the above.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Do you have any questions for us?
Sorry.
Were you drinking before you got here?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was at my new boss's house. Calling her up. She's a little margarita. It was in a cup like that. It was at 2:00.
After 5 somewhere.
That's right.
I assume you have no conscientious objections.
Nah.
Do you have any questions for us?
I know that, I didn't even think you guys had anybody, so I wasn't, okay, then I get the email that says there's 3 of us, I'm like, wow. Okay, it's a whole slew of them, but, I would like an opportunity to serve on a committee like this, because first of all, what I've noticed in Littleton is the same people tend to do the same things over and over. And I'm wondering, are you looking for new blood? Do you like the same old thing? Do you want somebody you're comfortable with? Do you guys feel that that's an issue? Because I do. A lot of people that volunteer in Littleton tend to be the same people over and over and over and over on every committee I see. So I'm hoping that you guys have an open mind to that and will allow someone that's not served on a commission, on a board like this, an opportunity.
I do have just one Does anybody else have anything?
And I will ask, have you watched any or attended any of the licensing authority meetings?
I haven't attended any. I've seen on television. I've seen
Okay,
some.
thank you.
I guess I just have one concern that I'd like to have you elaborate on a bit if you feel like it. The issue of the attendance. Part of the concern regarding this particular committee is that it is a quasi-judicial and that we have in the past had some attendance issues with some of the members. And so because it is a smaller committee, I think we have 7 on the committee. And we are then basically hearing quasi-judicial type of trial sort of thing. It's important.
Right.
It's very important that we have the full body there as often as possible. So understanding that you do have 3 mandatory times, I think we have a attendance criteria of 2 absences. Council will be looking more closely at that just to make sure that we aren't causing an undue burden on other members because of others. So I just wanted to kind of get your a little bit more input from you on where you see this fitting in when you've got these kind of, and I get the whole career choice thing too.
Yeah, and I'm extremely responsible. I am not the kind of person that takes things lightly when I enter into them. I'm highly committed and dedicated to everything I do. If I can't do it, I'll say so. If you guys give me dates and I look at, and I talk with my new boss, my new principal, and I see conflicts, I'm going to let you know, because I wouldn't do that. It's just not the right thing to do. Like I said, I'm all about justice and highly ethical as far as treatment of others. But it matters to me. It matters greatly to me. And when you take something on like this, you don't take it on lightly.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else? Okay. Well, we will, Wendy will be getting in touch with you in the next day or so. We'll make our decision this evening and then hopefully vote in the new member next week.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. You drink my vodka.
You can finish. Throw it back.
Just don't throw it at him.
Don't throw it at Bruce. Yeah. That's right.
Throw it at you, but don't.
Alcohol of Bruce?
That was wood. Does this red purse have more money than mine? If it does, I'm taking it.
That's a go back, yeah. All right, thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Wait a minute, I'm still drinking. Is that Doug?
Uh-huh. Hi, Doug.
Okay.
Thank you.
You guys here the rest of the night?
Uh-huh.
Oh, not long.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Take care.
You too.
Okay, so unless anyone has an objection to it, we can definitely have a conversation about it, or I could put the names on the board and we can yay or nay for what we want.
We're going to make our decision tonight. Is that the plan?
Yes, I think we should. And then,
Excellent. I agree.
and then Wendy can notify them tomorrow, and we can get them on the agenda for next week. Okay. So do you guys want to discuss anything, or?
I'm willing to campaign for one.
All right.
Okay.
I thought Kathy Thompson was a breath of fresh air. She didn't come in with a lot of canned answers. She didn't answer the questions as precisely as some of the other candidates did. But I think she's a very willing learner, and I don't see where she has a conflict with attendance. They have in the past, when they needed all 7 members, delayed a meeting because they knew in advance it was going to occur. So I don't see that as a major problem. But I just thought that she was just kind of a fresh air to that group. And so I would support her.
Bruce?
I thought all three of them were strong, each in their own way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought Kathy's comment about some new blood was an interesting comment. Tony's experience pretty much stands on its own. He's obviously got as much knowledge as anyone probably can have, and I think would do a good job. Frank obviously does too, given at some level, I mean, he's done it for Arapahoe County. I didn't look at the makeup. I know we've got a few folks on there who are newer. Is the need, is the experience level on the board at this point one where they've got enough, with the guidelines we've given them and with the experience that's already on the board? How does that, do we feel we've got at this point a relatively experienced group of board members on that committee, or on that
We're
authority?
replacing Susan Price, who
Right.
had been on there 2 or 3 years. And I
Chris-
think that 3 years,
No, she was there 4 or 5.
Yeah, I thought she was a
Okay.
little bit longer than that.
2008, when she was appointed.
2008,
Okay.
4 years.
Jerry's
So-
got the list, by the way.
Oh, okay.
How long
And
have
I
they
know
been
Bill
on?
Bradish has
Bradish.
been, and he's the chair at this point. We haven't had a lot of turnover on that committee. I think it's a pretty stable committee. Donovan's on there,
Donovan's been on
and
a
I
while.
think he's been on for 3 or 4 years too.
Chris Forrest is pretty new, but he's
And he's
the
been a
attorney.
real strong
Yeah,
player.
he's got
He's been a
bandwidth.
real positive.
Yeah.
So has Andrew,
And Andrew, yeah.
Andrew Cole. He's relatively new. Bill Bradish and Earl Gunya have been on for a long time.
Since 2007.
Yeah, not a long time, but
Relatively speaking.
relatively speaking, yeah. But it's a pretty stable group.
And I'm not speaking against in saying this, but because that board is so constrained by rules, part of me thinks that we would be wasting Kathy having her on that as opposed to encouraging her to apply for one of several other boards that really could use the kind of skills that she has in her background, that the working with people and coming to solutions. The licensing authority is, it's not quite, but it's closer to formulaic in looking at what the issue is, and is this a violation, isn't it? And then how severe, is it the first time we've ever seen this licensee or whatever? I think she is so super. I could just picture her on any of several other things that she would, that breath of fresh air would be super. I see the fresh air being locked in this. So that's not saying anything negative about her. I'd like to encourage her next year, less than a year away.
Jerry?
Yeah, I think having her coming in at a normal cycle would be, in my eyes, a good thing. When I see both Frank and Tony, I don't think it should be held against them that they are both active in our community, know our community. I don't think it should be held against anybody in this case. The positives that I see with Tony is that he did fulfill a term, and as a planning commissioner, I was on there for a full term, and it's amazing how many people do not fill a full term. Most do not fill a full term. I think when I was on there, Mark Rudnicki was the only one that did at that time, since it's been implemented. So I'll give that to Tony for that. I think Frank's experience, I think, most of us know a little something about Frank. I think he's, of course, dedicated to the city. I like the idea that he says he doesn't necessarily agree with what decisions were made, but he's certainly willing to enforce them. I think Tony's experience also as being a part of the initial marijuana ordinance, I think would be valuable as well, maybe even show a little bit of history. When I look at the board right now, and Bill Bradish, being one that was on there in 2007 and Earl 2007, relatively new people in my opinion. This is a pretty important board, and I think experience at this time would be very helpful.
Any other comments? They put the names up?
Sure.
Might as well.
Sure.
Sure.
I guess we, yeah, we
Consensus, right.
It's a recommendation to you to contact
That's right, it's a recommendation.
and put it on the
Ready to
agenda for next week.
recommend?
Right, because we actually vote at a public meeting,
Right.
regular meeting, right?
but whoever does that, I mean, the ones that aren't, to Peggy's point, should be encouraged to step up again, because all three are good candidates. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, we always have an abundance of pitches with this, and it's always difficult.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the vigor of our volunteers and the fact that they'll serve a term limit and then come back and want to serve again. And Tony, in between, served on planning
Yeah,
commission.
there you go.
But I also appreciate the new blood and the fresh blood, and I think that that is important, and I think Kathy is beyond, she said, I'm quite bright, and I think she is. And what I also liked a lot about her was she brings that counselor into it, because one of the things that we've seen on some of these boards and authorities is difficulty dealing with each other on difficult issues at times, and also with staff, particularly with some of the legal advice. And so I think she would bring a nice balance there to help with some, both sides and a calmer head on occasion. I think that freshness about her would be welcome. My 2 cents. Ready to go?
Well,
Jim.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Kathy?
Jerry.
Tony?
Bruce.
Yeah, I'm really torn between Tony and Kathy. I'm gonna lean Tony because of his specific experience.
Peggy.
Frank?
Kathy. Here we go again.
Assuming that nobody changes their mind, there only has to be one
Yeah.
person.
Peggy, who's your second choice?
Well, again, are we going to go around the table one more time just to talk?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
I think in this case, I think what Kathy does bring is she brings that sense of humor, but I think Tony, too, has a sense of humor. Those of you that have seen him when he's performed or worked on other boards, so he does bring a freshness to me also. He's not stale in any way. Kathy being relatively new as far as participating, I think that's wonderful, and I think there's other boards she could serve on as well. I think with this marijuana thing, who knows what's going to happen with that over the next few years. And I think with Tony's experience on this particular board in the past, I think this board does need somebody with lots of experience. I think having Bill and a couple others, but I think adding Tony to that experience factor, I think is paramount.
Bruce, any comments?
No, nothing. Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. In my case, I think Tony's, as I said, I both Kathy and Tony are strong in their own right. I would continue to probably lean Tony because of the specific attributes of this particular position at this time.
Tony, and again, that's nothing against Kathy, but I see her as just super for another board to use more her expertise. So I'm looking at just this little teensy difference of here. So, Tony.
I didn't hear the last two words.
So I said, there's just this little difference that I would say, Tony, I mean, Bruce and Jerry, I think, have said it nicely. So, as we often do, this is not a vote against anybody, but I just see her in being much more useful in another board or commission, much more. And
And frankly, I don't disagree with anything the three of you guys said about Tony. I think he's a very strong candidate, a very strong person, and would do well and has done well on that committee. So I'm not dissatisfied with Tony being the one.
Well, I think it's probably Tony. I guess I would just say that I do feel as though other people are capable of growing into positions, and I think that we have boards and commissions in order to be able to bring the community into the city workings. And I am becoming less and less a fan of recycling in terms of folks, and we did it this last time. We brought some others back. And we have viable candidates, and we have good people, and I really think, my personal opinion is, I honor the service that these people have done, and I respect that they want to come back and they want to serve again. But we have a community, a large community, with a lot of people who have a lot of skills and talents, and I think it behooves us to look beyond that. And I think Kathy was in here interviewing for this particular position, and I'm not going to decide where else she should go. It's our call tonight to decide whether she should be on this board or not. It will be her decision whether she wants to pursue something else eventually at some point. But I guess that's my 2 cents on that one. So we'll run around just to make it official.
Unofficial.
Unofficially, yeah, well, the recommendation.
There you go.
Jim?
Half for Tony and half for Kathy.
0.5.
No, I think that Kathy really said it, is that I think there's a feeling that echoes just what you said, Debbie, is that it's the same old people who do everything all the time, and there's reluctance to put fresh blood in. I would be satisfied with Tony, but I would prefer Kathy.
I would add, Jim, real quick on that I think if we continue to appoint people who have been on, we send a message to the others out there too. So, Jerry?
I think with the summer months coming in, there's bound to be some activity on that board. I'm going with experience with Tony.
Bruce?
Yeah, I don't by any stretch of the imagination disagree with what you guys are saying as far as the desire to involve a broader spectrum of the community. I am going to continue to lean Tony on this one, just given the nature of it, given his past history and experience. But I think Kathy's an outstanding candidate.
Eddie?
I think we have been appointing quite a few new people, and so I still lean toward Tony.
Kathy? Okay, let her go. Yep, I'll have him. And as long as he accepts, the other next Tuesday. We're adjourned.
Hey.